carry on and plan the sequel. Because let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel.
And welcome back to Micro Queers. It's your bi-weekly queer horror short roundup, and I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and this week we are talking Farbod Kostanat's Two Little Boys, which it's heavy. It's heavy.
It's just a touch heavy, yes. So folks, if you haven't watched the 13-minute short, it is about Josh, played by Trace Talbot, and he has a love for a closeted bully named Tyler, who is played by Aza German, and that drives him into an unconventional road to confession and its consequences. And I mean, I love the log lines for shorts because they always bury the lead, because that might make you think, it's not that bad.
I mean, reading the comments, like on the YouTube clip for this, I mean, this is an unconventional short because I knew it was going somewhere not good. Like, I knew that's what was happening here, but I didn't know exactly what was going to happen, or at least like the reveals that we got. Like, the reveal at the end with that home video footage is just
it's soul crushing, right?
It's a gut punch, and honestly, obviously it recontextualizes the entire piece, but it in a way that I think it's way more impactful than if it was just he's just a homophobic or closeted like queer bully, you know.
Yeah, so as I suggest, that logline really buries the lead, but I like that this film opens with that home video footage. So you see, video cam footage from 1994. It's of these two little boys playing on swings. And then we cut immediately to every queer boy's favorite space, the high school locker room. And Josh is bullied by these two boys. But I think one of the things that I appreciated as the short goes on is that neither of them is good or bad. Like, it's not a straightforward case of bullying because it becomes quickly evident that Josh is actually... he has made false rape accusations against Tyler, but Tyler is obviously bullying him like really badly. And I love the kind of slow reveal where we see Josh initially in profile, and then he turns and you see that he has a black eye. And it's like, oh, okay, right off the bat, we know what we're dealing with.
Well, and I mean, what you would expect from something like this, again, so, it's revealed eventually that, so they have feelings for each other and maybe have done physical things before outside of the kiss we see in the home video footage from when they were like 5 years old. I also love that it's a period piece because this is 2006, so I would have actually been their age during this time frame. But again, with this, you always expect that it's going to be, okay, cool, like, closeted queer man, queer boy is bullying other queer people because he has internalized homophobia. Right. And that is what we're dealing with here.
Yep.
But my favorite thing is that, he's so mad about his mom coming, and you're like, well, what's
the big deal with mom?
He's pissed off about it, whatever. Like, he doesn't want to go to the principal's office. And then you learn that, like, she is the one who was so anti-gay. And this is something that I don't know if we've talked about on this podcast before, but we've seen it in like season 2 of Love, Victor, where we see the mom not handle the coming out process very well, because so often in media it's always the dad, because again there's that machismo factor. So I love seeing this side of it, because that was actually my experience. I mean, not to this extent, but I grew up in a household where my mom took it way worse than my dad did.
Yeah. And folks, when Trace said that he loves it, for those of you who are not watching the video on YouTube, he did make air quotes. It's hard to say that I love anything about this short in particular. It's very emotional. Like I feel like we're using the word visceral a lot on the podcast lately. It's just something that you really feel. Like, everything about this short feels physical. It's actual physical violence, but also just like the pit, like the ball in the pit of your stomach as you're waiting for something bad to happen, and this escalating sense of dread. And I actually do think that the mise en scène helps to capture that. Like, the lighting is kind of grossly green and sickly, so it cues you to feel right from the beginning.
And when we go back to the home video, it's like bright, sunshiny day on a playground. And so in the juxtaposed with that, I gasped out loud twice watching this short. And it was when the cellophane came out, which I was literally like, oh, fuck. Because then I was like, I know what's going to happen now. And it was when Tyler fell, when he was trying to push down the door. I gasped and I almost jumped out of my seat. Like, I mean, it was...
Yeah. Because again, we're sort of pushing the genre boundaries here. Like, I think a lot of people might look at this and classify it as a straightforward drama. As a queer person, I easily identify this as a kind of horror film, but the physicality of it is such that, like, they actually had a professional stunt coordinator on the shoot. Like, this is a 2-day shoot, but they had somebody in there to make sure that these hits, which feel so impactful, didn't go awry. And that is the best one, because the sound effects mixed with the physicality is like, bam, you feel it.
You're really lobbying. I don't want to say even lobbying back and forth between who you're rooting for here. And again, I'm putting rooting for in air quotes.
Right.
But like, I mean, again, like, you don't want either one of them to die. But again, like the film starts and you're like, oh, bully, bad. Like, let's just take this guy down a peg.
Yeah.
And there's such subtle nuances in Asa German's performance as the short goes on, where even when he's still being that bully, you can see the pain and the pleading behind his eyes.
Yeah.
Which you think it's just because don't out me. Like, I don't want to be outed. And then as it goes on, it's like, oh no, like, he's terrified of his mother.
Well, and it is tough, right? Because initially I just thought, no, this is a person who's bad because he's bullying a very obviously queer person. And then it becomes, oh, is he hiding a secret? Because when the letter starts to get read, because Josh is clutching this letter throughout the entire short. And when he reads it, I actually thought it was going to be from Tyler to him, revealing the fact that they had been having some kind of affair or that they had feelings for one another. And then you realize it's just a love letter. Like, it's a really sad love letter from somebody who has been obsessed with this person. And again, the short likes to kind of recontextualize what's happening. So you realize, okay, there was something there once upon a time. It's only Josh who feels it now. But you're right. I do think there's something in, particularly Asa German's performance, that you can see that pain. And even if he doesn't have those kinds of feelings for Josh anymore, he doesn't want to hurt him, but he also can't stop himself, because if hurting him means that he won't be outed either to his friend who's in the bathroom with him or his mom, then it's what he feels like he has to do. Like, this is what sexual repression looks like. It results in violence.
I mean, well, and that's what I, again, love, in quotes, about this.
Stop using air quotes.
It's not just his fault. I mean, there's nuance here, right? It's not black and white. Like, yes, the things he is doing are very shitty,
wrong.
Are very bad. You personally, did you ever have a bully for, like, making fun of you for being gay? I mean, I know you weren't out back then, but but basically one that did come out later.
So this is such dangerous ground, right? Because I actually feel like I've seen a lot of discourse online about how it's important not to try to frame every person who bullies as a closeted queer, because
but
that I think removes the responsibility for them. I personally don't think I've had that, but I mean, I was definitely bullied and all that good stuff. Yay.
I never had I never had a specific bully, but I've had people apologize to me later that were not queer for treating me like shit in high school. Okay. But I've seen people that stood by on the sidelines as I was being bullied that did come out later. And then, of course, bystander effect there. You know, it's like, well, fuck you. Like, but I obviously know why they weren't speaking up. But even with our two protagonists here, I mean, Josh isn't really, I mean, again, I'm not going to say he's not innocent, because obviously he doesn't deserve the abuse coming his way, but he does kind of do something that isn't great.
Yeah. And I'll confess. So most of these shorts I watch twice, because I check to see whether or not they're a good fit for the show. And then I watch them again before we record. And I had kind of skimmed through this one. So I actually missed the rape accusation. I just saw that he had done something that instigated a very violent response in Tyler. And so watching it this time around, my heart just kind of sank, because it's like, oh, well, we've got a queer person who's being bullied, but I fucking hate media that depicts false accusations of rape, because, you know, in the real world, we have huge issues with people not being able to come forward about sexual assault because they aren't believed. And every time we find out that there's like a Jesse Smollett and his, you know, fictitious story, like, it really hurts other people. And it also, I think, suggest to people that not only should we not believe people who come forward, but also if you were in that position, you will not be believed because of liars like that.
So I totally get it. This is definitely a case for me where it's like, well, is it the character or is it the film? Because it does say it's based on a true story, and I do not know the details of this true story, so I don't know.
So I know it. It's basically just that the opening situation on the playground happened to the director, and it was his parents who were like, "You will never see this person again," and he was in love with a childhood friend, and then never saw that person again.
I guess, but again, I'm doing mental gymnastics here where I'm just kind of like, but it's also like a 15 or 16-year-old boy who is desperate and alone. And I'm not saying what he's doing is right. And so I get it. It's not right. I'm sorry. Yeah, it is not right. And I get it. But I'm also just kind of like, so when we were talking about the media that does that, right?
Yeah.
So when writing this, like this didn't have to be a plot point, right? It didn't have to be rape. So then it's kind of like, well, why? Why is this that? And I it's easier for me to swallow, but I do like
you understand.
Doesn't mean I'm ignoring the weight behind the decision to include that.
Yeah, to me, it suggests that it's such an extreme accusation, right? So in my mind, it gives us insight into what Josh is going through, that he feels like this is the only thing that I can say that's actually going to make something better or catch this boy's attention. I don't like it, but I can see how it gets used and how it reframes the character. Yeah, no, I mean, it really does. But again, I'm just like, it's a teenage boy. Like, what, like, yeah. But I'm interested to see what our listeners think of this because, well, I mean, we probably should have offered some content warnings off the get-go. But I mean, nevertheless, I really liked this short. I don't know if I could watch a full-length version of it. Now, that doesn't mean I don't want it to exist, because I do think that there is a powerful story here. And again, specifically, I mean, I tweeted something this week or last week where I was like, parents of anyone, like, check yourself when you're watching any piece of media with a queer character in it. Because I can promise you, if you have a closeted queer child, they are watching you, using your reactions as a litmus test for how you'll react when if they decide to come out. Yeah. And that's why I liked this short so much, is because it does show the impact. I mean, granted, this is an extreme. This is a woman that is abusing her son as a child for kissing a boy or for trying to kiss a boy. Yeah, and potentially results in one, potentially two deaths. Very significant outcomes. Exactly. And so I do think there's a film to be made here. I just, like, before walking into said film, I would have to, like, really mentally, like, prepare myself for the horrible things I'm about to see. Yeah. Have you seen In the Bedroom? No. It's Sissy Spacek and Tom Wilkinson and Marissa Tomei. No, but that's like 2001. I definitely watched the Oscars that year. Okay. It has that kind of feel to me, where it's a bit of a domestic drama, but the stakes are such that it's life and death, but with regular folks. And I could see a feature-length version kind of playing along those lines, where it is more properly dramatic. You could probably attract some pretty big A-list stars. I think American Beauty might be another comparison, where it's like the dark underbelly of suburbia. Kind of stuff. Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, I guess so. I mean, I kind of give a half answer, but would you watch a feature-length version of this? I like the way that Farbad Koshtanet shoots this, and I would really like to see what he would do with a longer medium. This is a bit of an exercise in tension, and at 13 minutes, it feels kind of expertly paced. Yeah. So I would be a little trepidatious about a feature-length film, but I think the visual eye is definitely there. I do agree with you. I guess so. This is a scene in the movie, or is it? Are we stretching this scene to feature? Well, no, that wouldn't work. But, like, is this scene, I guess, at the end of the movie, or maybe it's in the middle of the movie, and like the second half is? I think the fallout is. Well, I mean, like, Josh is dead, but we're watching how Tyler, I guess, adjusts or what he does after that. Like that. I'm interested in that. But. Yeah. I think there's a lot to play with there. Well, listeners, let us know what you thought of Two Little Boys. Again, it's a lot. It's a lot. Yep. I like that we're finding some kind of mix where every once in a while we have a heavy one, but we also have playful ones as well. So thank God.
Yeah. Well, all right. So yeah, again, if you're listening to this, please, if you want, go over to YouTube and watch us so you can see me do my air quotes. But until our next episode or mini-sode of Micro Queers, we can cross out 2 little boys.
Ooh. Yes, and cross out micro queers. I'm going to keep hitting the microphone because, Amateurville.
Hello, I'm Shelby Scott, the host of Scare You to Sleep, a podcast where I tell you spooky bedtime stories full of creepy sound effects and music that is soothing yet unsettling to help immerse you into a world of horror. This is a show for those of us who have realized horror can be a strange but relaxing escape from reality. Speaking of escapes, sometimes I lead you through guided nightmares, like a guided meditation, but instead of flowery meadows, I take you on a journey through your own personal nightmare. So come get lost in the terror with me. Listen to Scare You to Sleep wherever you listen to podcasts, or find us online at bloody.fm. Sweet screams.